Nearly 8,000 feet up in the Andes Mountains of Peru, balanced on a narrow ridge between two peaks, sits a city that hid from the world for almost 400 years. It clings to a mountaintop so remote and so high that clouds drift below it, and for centuries, almost no one outside the mountains knew it was there at all. Its name is Machu Picchu, and it was built by a people who had no iron tools, no wheel, and not a single written word. They were the Inca, and their empire was the largest the Americas had ever seen. This is the story of an impossible city, raised in the sky by an empire that vanished, and left to sleep in the clouds until the world stumbled upon it again. Machu Picchu was built around the year 1450, most likely as a royal estate for the greatest of the Inca emperors, a ruler named Pachacuti. It was a retreat for the god king and his court, a place of temples, palaces, and gardens, perched impossibly at the top of the world. And here is what makes it almost unbelievable. The Inca built all of it without the tools we would think you would need. They had no iron and no steel. They had no wheel for carts. And they had no horses or oxen to haul heavy loads, only human muscle and the llama. Yet they cut enormous blocks of granite and fitted them together so perfectly that 500 years later, you still cannot slide a knife blade between the stones. They used no mortar, no cement, nothing to glue the stones together. Each block was shaped by hand to lock against its neighbors, like a giant three-dimensional puzzle. This was not just for beauty, it was genius engineering. The Andes are shaken by earthquakes, and when the ground trembles, the tightly fitted stones shift, dance, and settle back into place, instead of collapsing. Some of the granite blocks weigh over 50 tons and were dragged up the mountainside and shaped using nothing more than harder stones, bronze tools, sand, and raw human effort. The Inca were obsessed with the sun, which they worshipped as their greatest god. At the heart of Machu Picchu, they carved a strange stone pillar from the living rock. It is called the Intihuatana, meaning the hitching post of the sun. It works like a giant sundial and calendar, casting shadows that mark the turning of the seasons. On the most important days of the year, the sun aligns perfectly with the temple windows, proof that these builders were also brilliant astronomers. They shaped their temples to honor sacred animals. One chamber is carved in the form of a condor, the great Andean bird they believed carried the spirits of the dead up to the heavens. To feed the city on a steep mountain peak, the Inca sculpted the slopes into hundreds of flat terraces, like a giant green staircase climbing the mountain. And most of their genius is invisible. Beneath those terraces lie deep layers of rock and gravel, a hidden drainage system that channels the heavy mountain rains and stops the whole city from sliding off the cliff. In fact, experts believe more than half the work at Machu Picchu is underground, in foundations and drainage you can never even see. Fresh spring water was carried into the city through carved stone channels, feeding a chain of 16 fountains that still flow today. But Machu Picchu was only one jewel in a vast and staggering empire. The Inca Empire stretched for over 2,500 miles down the spine of South America, ruling perhaps 12 million people. They called it Tawantinsuyu, the land of the four quarters. They bound it together with an incredible network of roads, tens of thousands of miles of them, crossing deserts, mountains, and gorges spanned by woven rope bridges. Since they had no writing, messages were carried by relay runners, sprinting between stations, who could rush news across the whole empire in just a few days. And they kept their records not on paper but on the quipu, bundles of knotted strings, where the color, position, and type of each knot recorded numbers and information. At the empire's heart was the capital, Cusco, which the Inca called the navel of the world. Above it towered a colossal fortress of stone, Sacsayhuaman, built from blocks so massive, some over 100 tons, that later peoples refused to believe humans had moved them at all. To the Inca, gold was the sweat of the sun, and silver was the tears of the moon. Their temples blazed with it, until the Spanish melted nearly all of it down into coins. They had no money and no markets. Instead, every family paid the empire in labor, and in return the state filled vast warehouses with food, including a clever freeze-dried potato that could be stored for years. They believed their dead emperors were not truly gone. The royal mummies were kept in their palaces, dressed in fine cloth, offered food, and carried out to sit among the living at great festivals. And on the highest, most sacred peaks, the Inca left precious offerings to their gods, sometimes even children, who were preserved by the freezing cold and are still being discovered today. So how could an empire this powerful simply disappear? In the 1500s, Spanish conquistadors arrived, hungry for gold. But before their swords came something far deadlier: disease. Smallpox, brought from Europe, swept through the Andes and killed a huge share of the population, including the emperor himself, throwing the empire into chaos and civil war. Weakened and divided, the mighty Inca Empire was conquered by only a few hundred Spanish soldiers. Its cities were looted, its temples stripped of gold. But high in the mountains, Machu Picchu had a secret defense. It was so remote and so well hidden that the Spanish never found it. Its people quietly abandoned it, and the mountain kept it safe. It was never looted, never burned, never destroyed. It simply slept. For almost 4 centuries, the jungle slowly crept over the terraces, and the outside world forgot the city in the clouds had ever existed. Then, in 1911, an American explorer named Hiram Bingham came searching the mountains for a different lost Inca city. A local farmer told him of ruins high on a nearby peak, and sent a young boy to guide him up the mountainside. What Bingham found astonished the world: a breathtaking lost city, its temples and terraces still standing after 400 silent years. But here is the twist: it was never truly lost. Local farming families had known about Machu Picchu all along, and were quietly growing crops on its ancient terraces the whole time. Even now, Machu Picchu holds tight to its secrets. Exactly why it was built and why it was finally abandoned is still argued over by historians today. Was it a royal getaway, a sacred temple, a mountaintop observatory to read the stars, or all three at once? The city has never fully told us. Today, Machu Picchu is one of the new 7 wonders of the world, drawing over 1 million visitors a year up the mountain to stand in the clouds. It stands as breathtaking proof of what human beings can build without iron, without the wheel, without a single written word, driven by nothing but genius, faith, and will. A city raised in the sky by a vanished empire, hidden in the clouds and still watching silently over the mountains that kept it safe. That was our 4th lost city. Subscribe, and next time we cut deep into the jungles of Cambodia to find the largest city of the entire medieval world, swallowed whole by the forest. I will see you there.